Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in.
A drive-by download is often misunderstood as any file that appears after someone clicks a download button, but the term describes a more troubling situation. The visit itself, or a small action taken during the visit, causes unwanted software or code to be delivered from a malicious or compromised website. The practical question is not simply whether a file was downloaded. Security teams need to determine whether the browser was exploited automatically, whether the visitor was deceived into approving something, or whether advertising and redirects moved the browser through several harmful locations. Those distinctions affect what evidence should be collected, which controls may have failed, and how broadly the organization should respond. By the end of this episode, you should be able to explain what a drive-by download is, how it reaches a device, why legitimate-looking websites can be involved, and which defensive decisions reduce the chance that a brief web visit becomes a larger security incident. A useful working definition is that a drive-by download occurs when web content causes unwanted code or software to reach a device without the visitor intentionally seeking that software. Some drive-by downloads happen automatically because the browser, an extension, or another web-facing component contains an exploitable weakness. Others depend on misleading prompts that persuade the visitor to approve a download, install an extension, allow notifications, or run a file presented as necessary. Malicious advertising can contribute by placing harmful content or redirects on pages that may otherwise appear legitimate. The central distinction is consent and intent. A normal download is requested for a known purpose, while a drive-by download is delivered through exploitation, deception, or an unexpected chain of web activity. The term is sometimes used narrowly for fully automatic delivery and sometimes more broadly for user-assisted deception, so defenders should describe the observed behavior rather than relying on the label alone. The browser is the main delivery environment because it processes complex content from many sources. A single page may load scripts, images, advertisements, fonts, media, analytics, and embedded material from several different systems. Each component creates an opportunity for unsafe content to enter the browsing session, especially when the browser or one of its supporting components is outdated. A vulnerability can allow specially crafted content to cause behavior the browser was not supposed to permit, such as writing a file, executing code, or escaping an isolation boundary. The visitor may see no obvious warning because the harmful activity can occur while the page appears normal. Delivery does not always mean successful compromise, however. A file may reach the device but fail to run, an exploit attempt may be blocked, or the browser may terminate the page. Defenders therefore need to separate attempted delivery, completed download, execution, and subsequent malicious activity. Browser extensions add another layer of risk because they often receive permissions that ordinary web pages do not have. An extension may be able to read page content, modify what the visitor sees, manage downloads, inspect browsing activity, or interact with other browser features. A vulnerable extension can be abused by malicious web content, while a malicious extension can create drive-by behavior directly. Extensions can also change ownership or receive harmful updates after users have already trusted and installed them. The important distinction is that the browser may be fully patched, while an extension still creates exposure. Reducing extension risk requires more than telling users to be careful. Organizations can restrict which extensions are allowed, review requested permissions, remove unused extensions, monitor changes, and manage browser configurations centrally. When investigating suspicious web activity, defenders should record the browser version, installed extensions, extension permissions, and recent updates, rather than assuming the browser application is the only relevant component. Misleading prompts turn a technical delivery attempt into a social engineering problem. A page may claim that a browser update, document viewer, security check, media component, or notification permission is required before the visitor can continue. The prompt may imitate the appearance of the browser or operating system, even though it is only content displayed inside the page. The visitor is then asked to download a file, approve an extension, paste a command, or grant a permission that the website does not genuinely need. This form of drive-by activity is not fully automatic, but the web visit still creates the opportunity and directs the unwanted delivery. The defensive decision changes because patching alone will not stop every deceptive prompt. Browser controls, application allow listing, user education, download reputation checks, and clear policies for software installation all contribute. Investigators should also distinguish an authentic browser message from a web page designed to resemble one. Malicious advertising, often called malvertising, allows harmful content to reach visitors through the advertising systems that support many websites. The website displaying the advertisement may not have intentionally included malicious code. Instead, a harmful advertisement, compromised advertising account, or manipulated redirect may enter the supply chain and send selected visitors elsewhere. The redirect can depend on location, device type, browser version, time, or other characteristics, which may make the behavior difficult to reproduce. One visitor may see an ordinary advertisement, while another is sent through a harmful sequence. Blocking all advertising is not always practical, and the underlying issue can extend beyond the visible advertisement itself. Defenders can reduce exposure through browser isolation, filtering, reputation services, script controls, and rapid patching. During an investigation, the referral chain, page address, time of visit, and network connections can be more useful than a screenshot of the final page alone.
A compromised legitimate website creates another common misunderstanding. People often assume that drive-by downloads come only from obviously suspicious pages, but attackers can alter trusted sites, third-party scripts, content management systems, or embedded services. The visitor may type the correct address and still receive harmful content because something behind the page has been changed. Trust in the website's brand does not guarantee that every resource loaded during the visit is safe. This is why advice based only on avoiding strange websites is incomplete. Safer browsing also depends on software maintenance, isolation, filtering, restricted privileges, and control over what downloaded content can execute. For website owners, secure administration, timely updates, strong authentication, file integrity monitoring, and review of third-party components reduce the chance that their site becomes a delivery point. For defenders, the legitimacy of the visible domain should not end the investigation when browser or endpoint evidence shows unexpected activity.
Before we continue, this is a brief promotional message. This episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy provides a place for people who want to keep developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. Topics like drive-by downloads become easier to evaluate when you understand how browsers, users, controls, and evidence fit together rather than treating each alert as an isolated mystery. Visit baremetalcyber.com to explore the Academy and see the learning opportunities currently available. There are no promises of instant expertise or guaranteed career results, only an invitation to continue learning in a deliberate and practical way. Now, let's return to how defenders recognize and reduce unwanted web-based delivery.
Detection begins by looking for behavior across the browser, endpoint, and network, rather than waiting for a clearly named malicious file. Useful evidence may include an unexpected download, a browser process creating another process, a newly installed extension, a sudden permission change, a redirect to an unfamiliar domain, or a file written to a temporary location. Endpoint detection and response, EDR tools, may record process relationships and file activity, while web gateways and network logs may reveal the sequence of connections. Browser history can help, but it may not show every embedded request or redirect. A blocked event is still valuable because it can identify a vulnerable page, a harmful advertisement, or a targeted visitor population. Defenders should preserve timestamps and relationships among events. A single alert may look minor, but the combined evidence can show whether the activity stopped at delivery or continued into execution, persistence, credential access, or command and control.
The phrase download can also mislead people into looking only for a conventional file saved in a familiar folder. Web-delivered code may be handled in memory, stored in a browser cache, written to a temporary directory, or passed to another process. Some activity may use legitimate scripting or system components after the browser has initiated the chain. That does not mean every unusual browser process is malicious, but it means file scanning alone may miss important evidence. Security controls should examine behavior, reputation, process relationships, and execution policy in addition to file contents. The earlier distinction between delivery and execution remains essential. An unwanted file that never runs presents a different level of harm from code that executes and changes the system. Response teams should not declare the device clean merely because no obvious installer appears in the Downloads folder, and they should not declare a full compromise without evidence that the delivered content executed or achieved an effect. Patching is one of the strongest defenses against automatic drive-by downloads because many attempts depend on known weaknesses in browsers, extensions, document viewers, or operating system components. Patching is not a complete answer, however. A fully updated browser can still display a deceptive prompt, load a malicious advertisement, or allow a visitor to download something harmful voluntarily. Patch management also fails when updates are available, but devices cannot receive them, users postpone restarts, unsupported software remains in use, or extensions update outside normal oversight. Effective maintenance therefore includes asset visibility, supported versions, update enforcement, and confirmation that patches were actually applied. Organizations should pay particular attention to browsers because they interact continuously with untrusted content. A patching program that tracks servers carefully but leaves user browsers and extensions unmanaged creates an avoidable gap. The goal is to reduce exploitable exposure, while recognizing that social engineering and supply chain delivery still require additional controls.
Privilege and execution controls limit what happens after delivery. A user who browses with administrative rights gives unwanted code more opportunity to change system settings, install software, or affect other users. Least privilege reduces that reach, although it does not prevent every form of compromise. Application allow listing can restrict which programs, scripts, or installers are permitted to run, while browser isolation can place risky web activity in a separated environment. Download controls and reputation checks can block known harmful content or require additional review for uncommon files. Segmentation and restricted access can reduce the consequences if a device is compromised. These controls address different parts of the chain, so they should not be treated as interchangeable. Patching reduces the chance that vulnerable software can be exploited. User-focused controls reduce the chance of deceptive approval. Execution and privilege controls reduce the ability of delivered content to run or cause broader harm.
Response decisions should be based on the stage the activity reached and the confidence of the evidence. If a web filter blocked a known harmful redirect before content reached the device, the response may focus on identifying who encountered the page, checking for related traffic, and blocking the source more broadly. If a file was downloaded but not executed, defenders should preserve it safely, determine its origin and reputation, and confirm that no related process started. If execution occurred, the investigation expands to process activity, persistence, credentials, network connections, and changes made to the device. A compromised legitimate website may require communication beyond the affected user because other people could have visited the same page. The response should also address the control failure that allowed the event, whether that was missing patches, an unapproved extension, excessive privilege, weak filtering, or a deceptive prompt that bypassed expectations. Accurate staging prevents both underreaction and unnecessary escalation. A practical way to evaluate suspected drive-by activity is to reconstruct the chain in plain language. Start with the page the visitor intended to reach, then identify every redirect, embedded source, advertisement, or prompt that influenced what happened next. Determine whether the browser or an extension had a relevant weakness, whether the visitor approved any action, what content reached the device, and whether that content executed. Check which controls observed or blocked each step, including browser protections, web filtering, endpoint monitoring, application control, and privilege restrictions. Record what is known separately from what is inferred. A browser alert may prove that an exploit attempt occurred without proving successful execution. A downloaded file may prove delivery without proving compromise. This method helps defenders choose the right response, explain the event accurately to leadership, and improve the specific control that failed instead of applying a vague solution to the entire web environment. A drive-by download is unwanted software or code delivered through a web visit by automatic exploitation, deceptive interaction, malicious advertising, compromised web content, or a combination of those conditions. The defining feature is that the visitor did not intentionally seek the delivered content for a legitimate purpose. Understanding the term requires separating the website visit, the delivery mechanism, the downloaded content, and any later execution or effect. Vulnerable browsers and extensions can make automatic delivery possible, while misleading prompts can persuade people to approve actions that appear necessary or trustworthy. Malicious advertising and compromised legitimate sites show why reputation alone cannot provide complete protection. The sound defensive approach combines patching, managed extensions, web filtering, browser isolation where appropriate, least privilege, execution controls, behavioral monitoring, and evidence-based response. When defenders describe each stage precisely, they can judge the real impact and correct the specific weakness that allowed an ordinary web visit to become an unwanted delivery path.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.